Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special Motor Trade Radio podcast in association with eBay Motors Group. You're joined by myself, Philip Nothard.
And me, Curtis Hutchinson. So today we're taking a special look at mental health wellbeing in the automotive sector. And we're delighted to welcome three very special guests to the show, each of whom will talk about a specific aspect how to address this important issue, which we hope you'll find useful and perhaps with your colleagues and friends in the sector.
So our guests today, this morning, are Rachel Clift, the Health and Wellbeing Director at Ben, our industry's dedicated charity. We've also got Gary Barker, a classic car dealer turned into a hypnotherapist and author of Who Has Worked With and Written About Cancer Sufferers, and Craig Mailey from Cox Automotive, who will be running the London Marathon next month to raise funds and awareness for Mind, the mental health charity. So Rachel, good morning and welcome to this Motor Trade Radio special podcast themed around mental health issues. So can you start by setting the scene and telling us what your insights and tell you at Ben about the health and wellbeing needs of people in the automotive sector?
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much for having me. And by all means, what a good way to start. So, industry's dedicated charity, we speak and interact with people from the automotive industry day in, day out through the services we provide online, through our helpline, our support service, and the training that we deliver. We also began carrying out annual surveys in 2018 for both individuals working in the industry as well as employers. And what does all of that tell us? What do we know? Well, I don't think this will be a surprise to any of you or our listeners. Political and unpredictability and advances in automotive technology make for an uncertain future, creating and placing increasing pressured environments for people working in the automotive industry. During the last 12 months, we've experienced a 70% uplift in inquiries to our helpline, 55% of which are individuals seeking support for their mental health, followed closely by 25% seeking financial support. Our support have seen a 50% increase in cases we're working with, and in February we took on a further 160 new cases in that month, and it's climbing month on month for us at the moment. At the end of February, we delivered over 700 mental health assessments, in which 90% of these go on to receive either counselling or talking therapies, and our online journeys are estimated to have supported around 60,000 individuals seeking self-help support related to issues such as stress, anxiety, depression. Our business surveys also tell us that the industry is feeling the same, that 25% of industry leaders report that employees have been unable to work due to mental health issues. And I think this is quite alarming. In 2019, we also launched a critical response service for employers. This service is designed to support unexpected incidents that employers in the industry face, which may lead to workplace or workforce trauma or distress. And it's usually related to loss of life. And as I said, alarming because 85% of these cases that we respond to are where an employee is taking their own life. And what does that tell us? Well, in 2018, 6,507 people in the UK died by suicide, 42% which were men aged between 25 and 64. The demographic of our industry places us at risk. And suicide is preventable, as we know, with the right support at the right time. So our insights tell us that mental health in the industry is a problem. Currently, we have 10 online support journeys which offer tips, advice and tools, and also help people to identify if they might benefit from accessing further support or our specialist services. We have a free and confidential helpline, which is available on weekdays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m, which is accessible via web chat. And we have a support service which provides a dedicated case management for those individuals that might benefit from a more comprehensive piece of support and a needs assessment. The case manager and the individual will create an action plan and they'll work through that plan together. And this might include referral into our mental health pathway, where an individual can receive support for mental health through a stepped care model, including access to an evidence-based CBT program, such as managing anxiety, depression on our digital platform, which is called SilverCloud, as well as access to life coaching, counselling, or other suitable talking therapies. Ben has historically been well known for supporting individuals with financial support, and this is still very much the case. We still do this and issue both emergency and crisis packages for support and other grant funds. We know that mental health isn't just an isolated issue, it's inextricably linked to lots of different areas, and money, worries and finance is very much part of that. We also deliver mental health training for employers and employees, including our own managing mental health and the workplace managers and mental health first aid. It's probably fair to say that we're on a journey in terms of our own service transformation, and we're committed to developing our health and wellbeing services to continue to be as relevant and as integral to the industry and its people as we can.
So you've recently redesigned your health and wellbeing model. Why have you done this at this stage?
Yeah, so I suppose in line with what I was saying earlier about our whole service transformation, we've been moving as a charity from a place of benevolence to being more service-led, and our health and wellbeing model needed to move and adjust to align with this. Our new model uses the analogy that life is like one long journey, and we're in the driving seat navigating our way through it. Our model has 2 dials either side of the dashboard, health and physical health. And in our model, mental health very much referring to the mind, how we think and feel, our physical health being more about our body, including our presence, our being, how we act and pursue sort of activity, and that we all have health. And our physical and mental health can vary on a scale from day to day, from good to poor, irrespective of whether we have a diagnosed health condition or not. And our mind and body is inextricably linked and interacts with each other on a continuous basis. And our model really is based on the foundations that we have these sort of core 6 areas that if we take a more balanced approach to managing, it not only has the potential to enhance the quality of our life, but also enables us to build personal resilience. So when life gets tough or throws a curveball, something that could set us off course, we have a better ability to cope. Our 6 areas in our model that are presented on our dashboard are my home, my money, my emotions, my lifestyle, my network, and myself. And as I said, managing these areas is also relevant for those with a long-term condition, as it can support the way in which they manage that condition, which is a term referred to as condition management. These 6 areas on our dashboard are critically important for us to check in on a regular basis. And fundamentally, our model overall works on the ethos of empowering individuals to be more in control of how they manage their health and wellbeing, to enable them to think well, to feel well, to live well, and to work well.
Now, Rachel, one of the stats you gave us earlier was about 25% of managers saying that staff are unable to report to work due to mental health. So what can employers actually do to support the health and well-being of their workforce?
So there is so much that I could say here, and the truth is that we're all unique, we're all individuals, and that includes us as employers and the culture that fits with an employer. So I don't think there's any single answer to that question. But if I were to encourage someone, I would say take a step back and ask yourself the question, as a business leader or as a HR professional or as a manager, do my employees know what well-being means to them? It is such a personal thing to everyone, and it's important for us to acknowledge that. And it isn't something that we're taught in life. So it's not something we come out of school with, but yet I consider managing well-being as a critical life skill. Evidence suggests that an employer can make the greatest return on investment in the preventative space, almost as high as £8 for £1 spent in reducing absence, improving performance and productivity, and sort of employee engagement. And employers will always need to respond and react when things go wrong, so they need the right support in place. But investing in manager training and your overall workforce to help them to better understand where they are in life, what they want from lives, and to understand their own wellbeing needs, developing this key life skill is essential for us all. So it's a really strong, poignant point for me.
So our next guest today is Gary Barker. And as we heard earlier, Gary was a classic car dealer until 2008, when he became a hypnotherapist working with cancer patients. He's now an author, having written the Your Cancer Journey book. Gary is also the creator of the Cancer Survivors Toolkit, an online program which helps cancer sufferers and their loved ones come to terms with diagnosis and the psychological aspect of dealing with cancer.
So hi, Gary. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Again,
as Curtis has just given a little bit of your background there, can you start by telling us what you think, why you think mindset and attitude are so important to the fight against cancer?
Well, I suppose the easiest way to answer that is to consider how demoralising a cancer diagnosis is in the first place. None of us know what's going on in our body at any one time, so we're all really vulnerable. But it's how we deal with the setbacks that make the difference, especially with something as emotive and personal as cancer. I find that generally when people go and get diagnosed, it will be because they're going because of a minor symptom. An ache or a pain, a lump or a bump, a cough, a bit of jaundice, some sort of niggle. But then to be diagnosed with cancer, the shock, the disbelief is obviously going to knock them for six. So the mental trauma is enormous, and that's why mindset and attitude are so important. For me, it's also about getting your head straight and then focusing on this new priority and the hurdles it presents. And that's why I created the toolkit. As for attitude, well, would you prefer to be drowning in despair or defiant, focused on your journey? Obviously, with my clients, I want to build defiance and that all-important motivation to mend. And so for me, there's two sides to it. There's the physical side, which medicine has to take care of, but then mindset and attitude are so important moving forward. Having focus, feeling in control, and actually feeling like you're actually participating in that journey rather than just handing yourself over to medicine and keeping your fingers crossed.
So, Gary, it goes without saying that being diagnosed with cancer has a massive impact, not only on the person diagnosed, but also the people around them. In your Cancer Survivors Toolkit program, you devote a lot of time to this focus on helping loved ones and carers. Why do you think assisting them is so important as part of this process?
I don't know if you've heard the saying, behind every great man, there's a great woman.
Yes.
Well, also, likewise with cancer sufferers, behind every cancer sufferer, there's a group of people, supporters, family, friends, loved ones. But they're also hurting. They also need support. And if the primary carer is the husband or the wife, a direct partner, if you like, they're the ones who have to hold the fort, keep smiling, make it look like everything's in hand, remain positive, and sort of help the sufferer on that journey. But often they're neglected. And for me, it's almost, I almost feel more sorry for them because they've got to keep a brave face going. And so for me, devoting time to them, making them realise that they do need to take time for themselves, their emotional well-being is as important as anybody else's, and they've got to look after themselves. And if they don't, they won't be able to care for the person that they love as well as they can. So for me, assisting them as much as you can is really, really important.
And in your book, Gary, your cancer journey, you argue that people with the positive outlook, the positive attitude, tend to fare better towards the treatment. How would you describe that? Why would you say that?
Well, while we're sitting here on this call, everybody that's listening, every single minute of the day, we're all producing cancer cells. And it's our immune system's job to go in there and kill those cells. If you consider our immune system is like piranhas, if those piranhas aren't healthy and fit, they won't be able to do the job and keep us healthy. So with that, what we're looking to do with this is positive outlooks is really important because stress affects the immune system. It means the immune system isn't working as well as it should. So if we're stressed and then we get a cancer diagnosis, additional stress, our immune system's really taking a hit. So if we can find a way to relieve that stress, then we'll be giving our immune system support and as you go through the ongoing treatment, the less stress you're feeling, the more positive you're feeling, the more your immune system will fight, and it will benefit you not only emotionally, but with your physical treatment as well.
Now, Gary, following on from that, an important part of what you talk about is this three-pronged approach with medicine, mindset, and lifestyle. So can you explain to us what impact lifestyle has on fighting cancer?
Yeah, of course. I don't know if you would have seen it, but actually this week in the news, there was a report that 400 cancer cases a day are due to poor lifestyle. And that is about half of the cancer cases that are diagnosed in this country. So half of them are down to lifestyle. So if we go back to the piranha analogy that I mentioned earlier, your piranhas are there, your immune system's there to fight disease. If your body's polluted or toxic or not as healthy, it's not got as healthy an environment as it should have, your immune system can't do the job that it's supposed to do. As I say, we all have cancer cells produced every day. If the environment isn't right for our immune system to fight them, we are going to leave ourselves open to disease. So the lifestyle thing is really important to give yourself the best opportunity you can to fight the disease. So you've got an environment that's conducive to maximise your treatment. If that's then tied in with medicine and mindset as well, then you're really giving yourself the best possible opportunity you can on your cancer journey. So it's sort of, medicine is always the first port of call. You know, that is the way forward first and foremost. But then you can contribute yourself by being positive. And when you are positive, as we said, you'll reduce stress, your immune system's fighting harder. Good lifestyle or improved lifestyle is then going to give your body that environment that will then help you maximise your medical treatment. So that's why the whole three-pronged approach is, for me, so important.
Fantastic, Gary. That's really insightful and much appreciated. So please do stay with us, and at the end of the show, you can give us the contact details of where people can go to get the book, and obviously from there the toolkit. So please don't go anywhere and wait to the end.
Of course.
So our final guest today is Craig Mailey, Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Cox Automotive UK. Craig has been in automotive since starting out in car deliveries before working in the leasing sector for many years. He joined Mannheim back in 2004, worked in various roles, including Cox Automotive International, before becoming Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer for the group. So, Craig, welcome to the show.
Morning, Curtis. Thank you.
Hi, Craig. Welcome to the show. I think it's the first time on the podcast in general, so it's new for yourself. But let's start off with explaining why Mind is such an important charity to yourself and to Cox Automotive.
Absolutely will do. Thanks, Philip. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Cox Automotive is a large US corporate organisation, but it's also a family-owned business. So when it comes to things such as charity and mental health, it matters. It's part of our well-being thing. So to our team members and to our team members' families, things like this really do matter. We've done quite a lot on mental health for the last couple of years, and to a certain extent inspired really by some of the things that Rachel talked about, because last year we raised close to £15,000 on behalf of Ben. And a couple of years ago, we also started to get our team members to take advantage of some of those services that Ben offers. And I think what we started to do then was, as we kind of opened the door and made talking about things like mental health kind of more the norm, more of the mainstream, some inspirational stories came from our team members. Those even featured in our internal magazines. We're sharing very, very personal things. And that sort of conversation started to be normalised. When it came to thinking about our charity in 2020, mine was very, very much at the uppermost on people's minds. So from that perspective, it's something that affects our industry. It's something that affects all industries. And this year for us, big focus in supporting mine. So not just the efforts that myself and my board colleague Alison Fisher are doing in the London Marathon, but we've got nearly 80 people climbing slow later in the year. We've got the usual things, the bake sales, etc., etc. And really for us, it's about everybody getting involved, because actually everybody to a certain extent gets touched by this at some form in their lives. And certainly, from our perspective, as we've seen, it's a much deeper issue than maybe we think on first glance.
Craig, is mental health something that you think the automotive sector needs to take more seriously?
I think society obviously needs to take it more seriously. And I guess really, if we think about our industry, automotive is changing incredibly fast. We've had a couple of difficult years in terms of new car sales. We've got changing business models. We've got dealerships going out of business. So just from a working perspective, in terms of things like working stress, there's an awful lot of change going on. There's people kind of losing their jobs. There's roles changing. And from that perspective, I think, automotive, like many industries, undergoing dramatic change at the minute. That creates an awful lot of workplace stress. And that's before you get into some of the things, some of the challenges that people have in their personal lives, which challenge mental health.
And Craig, you mentioned earlier that you're running the London Marathon in April for Mind with Alison, yourself and Alison, and many others, as we know. But tell us a little bit of what prompted you to choose this and why you chose to do the London Marathon.
Well, I think for Alison and I, we both participated in a walk last year that we walked up 11 summits in North Wales in the space of 48 hours. And that, for both of us, was a tremendous physical challenge. So I think both of us had it in our mind that our next charity fundraising, we'd really like to test ourselves. And for Alison and I, this is a very, very big test indeed. For both of us, we only really started the training sort of December time. I have the fortune that 20 odd years ago, I did run a marathon, so I kind of know what I'm getting into. And this is as much a mental challenge as it is a physical challenge. And I genuinely mean that, because those days when the weather is poor outside, it's windy, it's raining, the last thing you want to do at times is get on those running shoes. And really it is almost a mental health challenge to get those shoes on and get out of that door. And for us, we know that raising these funds is really, really important. And for us, we're going to get something out of this, because, hopefully for us, we'll have done things that we maybe wouldn't have expected that we could do even as early as December. So for us, we wanted something tremendously challenging, tremendously physical. And actually, like most things, you know what? If it's not hard, it's not necessarily worth it. So for us, the pleasure that we'll get from raising money at the end of it is great, but also what we'll have hopefully done is not only improved our physical fitness, but hopefully through this process, improve our mental fitness. And, throughout both our families, we've also got people within our own families with some mental health issues where they need help. And, we see it very much as part of that, where we can kind of empathise with others, because somewhere in most families, there are people going through some of these challenges every day.
Yeah.
Now, Craig, I actually ran the marathon 3 years ago, so I can totally empathise with what you're going through at the moment, especially on the back of what was the wettest February on record. So tell us how the preparations are going, and also how listeners can support you.
Well, the preparations, they're going okay. I think when you haven't run for 20 years and you start running again, you have to reset your expectations in terms of how fast you can do things.
Yep.
So this is not about a time. This is about kind of getting round and making sure that you get the medal at the end before the cut-off occurs. For both of us, we like to challenge each other every Sunday and send a message of how fast we've done and how far we've gone. And both of us last weekend ran a half marathon. I was in an official half marathon. Alison decided that she would run 13.1 miles so that she couldn't possibly let me run 13.1 miles without having achieved it herself. So we're kind of, egging each other on. We have the aches and pains that everybody will have doing something like this. We kind of know that we're no different to anybody else. And, from that perspective, there are times when it is fun, though, as well. It's not all pain and hard work. There are those times when you look at what you've achieved compared to a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks 5 weeks previously, it really gives you a tremendous internal boost to know that you're improving all the time. And sometimes, particularly with things like mental health, it's doing those small marginal gains, those little things, which every little improvement really, really helps, because nobody can run a marathon from a standing start. You think about even some of the great distance runners, and even Mo Farah, kind of struggle to get to that level of degree. It's hard for anybody. Now, we're obviously in the market for as much sponsorship we can get. We're hoping to raise £4,000 to £5,000 for Mine through this. And if anybody would like to support us, then please go to Virgin Money Giving /Cox Automotive UK London Marathon 2020. Every penny does make a difference to charities such as Mind. It will help not just our team members, but your team members out there and anybody going through mental health challenges. And the variety of services that they offer, really is quite incredible. But, fundamentally, that reflects the fact that this is such a broad topic that as an industry, as a country, we need to address.
Anybody running the marathon, anybody doing anything, but actually, running the marathon, obviously with Curtis, with Sports Curtis, when he did it, as he said 3 years ago, you get to that point, that brick wall point, and it's carrying on, and anybody that does it in whatever time they're doing, it's fantastic. So just at the minute, Craig, obviously there's a lot of conversation, a lot of concern around the coronavirus that's in the UK and everywhere else at the minute, and the marathon has been spoken about a couple of times into whether it's the right thing to continue it or not. But tell us, what happens if they do actually say that the marathon won't be going ahead? Is there any contingency plan in place for that?
Yeah, there's a couple of forms of contingency that we've got. We can find an alternative marathon maybe a few weeks later. There are lots of marathons throughout the whole country. Or alternative is the ultimate contingency, which is you find 26.2 miles and essentially kind of run a circuit. But obviously we prefer to have a full support team with water stations at various points on the course, but ultimately we will do this. This is not something we want to then postpone to 2021. No, we're aiming to kind of peak towards that end of April. That's our ideal time. So from our perspective, we want to raise this money and not use the excuse that the run was cancelled. In the unfortunate event that it does get cancelled, we will do those 26.2 miles, certainly within a few weeks of the planned date.
Well, Craig, obviously we wish you well. So, and let's hope the London Marathon does go ahead. So, many thanks to our guests. But before we finish, we'd like to invite all three of you to share your views on how you think managers listening to this special podcast today should be thinking about how to address the issue of mental health in their workplaces, and if there's any best practices that you can recommend.
I think there's something that's really powerful in the management space, which is about acting and playing the role model. So not expecting that as a manager that you're immune to this. This is, it's relevant to all of us. And as a manager, you play a key role in being the change, essentially. So leading the way and reflecting upon yourself and where you're at is a really critical part of that. So I personally feel that's a very strong and valid point for managers to be the change that they wish to see and play that real role model, and accept that when you open yourself up to that, you are also opening up your connectedness to your own workforce. And that's a really positive thing. So you're sharing and that sort of authenticity in the workplace. And I believe there's an initiative that Mental Health First Aid England have just literally launched last week, which is very much about being your authentic self in the workplace. And there's lots of tools and resources that you can go to on the website to support how you might implement that in the workplace.
Yeah, and any thoughts from you, Gary?
Well, it's a little bit more difficult for me because I've been self-employed for 25 years. But the thing that struck me with the conversation today is just how important it has now become in the workplace.
Yes.
And I sort of do remember those years ago when I was employed by companies and stuff, that mental health was really looked down on. It was just there was just no contingency for it. So to hear all this positive stuff going on, and that there is a real commitment to it from employees, I think that's great. And it's the way forward.
Yeah, and you, Craig?
I think for me, it's about making sure that the culture is right for these things to be actually raised. I think people tend to be more sensitive when they know somebody's going through a difficult time with a divorce or a bereavement or something like that. But actually, asking if somebody's okay and not just wanting that answer as please don't say, no, I'm not okay, because I really don't want the conversation. People can see through that. So make sure that the culture is right, that, when you're asking somebody, are you okay? It's genuine, it's sincere, it's done in a way of trying to help, be it to help them directly or to help them help themselves. So you've got to make sure the culture is right, because if the culture isn't right, then really the issue will never be fixed.
Fantastic. So just before we start to close down, but in terms of the contact details, Rachel, would you like to just tell the listeners how they can get in touch with Ben to access the support for themselves and their colleagues?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as I said earlier, on our website, we have tips, advice and tools. So you can log on to our website to access those free tools on www.ben.org.uk. And that is also the way in which you would be able to access online chat if you wanted to engage with our helpline, which is open weekdays, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We also have a free and confidential helpline, which is 08081 311 333. And an additional way that you can also contact our helpline is through email with supportservices@ben.org.uk.
Thank you, Rachel. And Gary, in terms of how do the listeners get hold of the book? And obviously there's the online toolkit as well that's available. What's the details they can get in touch with that?
Well, the book is called Your Cancer Journey, and it's available on Amazon in audio, Kindle and paperback format. That's only part of the Cancer Survivors Toolkit program. The toolkit is available at www.cancersurvivorstoolkit.com.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gary. And finally, Craig, do you want to just repeat the contact details and how people can pledge and you can donate towards the Mind Marathon run with yourself and Alison?
Yes, thank you, Philip. So please go to virginmoneygiving.com, and if you key in Cox Automotive UK London Marathon 2020, that'll take you straight to the page. And doesn't matter how small it is, please, every penny really, really is appreciated. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, that's all we've got for this time today. We hope you found this podcast useful. Kirsten and I would like to thank Rachel, Gary and Craig for joining us and sharing their insight. If you found today's show useful, then please like and share this podcast on Twitter, LinkedIn to help spread the word on this important issue.
Thanks, Phil. So you've been listening to this special Motor Trade Radio podcast brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group, the only weekly podcast serving the car retailing sector. Many thanks for tuning in. Do join us again next week for our regular look at the car retailing headlines. Until then, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Phil.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.